everyone, so for today's video I'm going to be doing a hair tutorial on my daughter Brooke. Brooke is now 6 years old, she's in year 1 at school and...
I just had my birthday.
She just had her birthday, so she's now 6. And I haven't done a hair tutorial on her in a really long time, and there's a hairstyle that she wears sometimes at like school or at parties and people always ask how I do it. And once you know how to do it, it's very easy. I think with a lot of braided hairstyles, it's always quite fiddly when you do like the first couple of stitches, but once you're into it, it's a lot easier to do. I wet her hair a little bit, which I think is a lot easier, and I explained other ways that I think help kind of hold the hairstyle in before I started actually doing it. So this is the hair, this is the braid that I will be showing you how to do. As you can see, I think it looks very cool, it looks very unique, but from the front it looks like she just has like 2 regular braids in, but then as soon as she turns around it looks, you know, a lot different, which I think looks really nice. And as I said, it's quite an easy hairstyle to do. It stays in really well, it keeps out of her face, it's perfect for when she's at like school or she's at ballet practice or anything like that. So if you want to see how I did this hairstyle on Brooke, then
please keep watching. Hi everybody.
So with this hairstyle, I would say you either want your hair to not be freshly washed, so like be like, you know, 2 or 3 days after you've washed it, because if you've got like quite slippery hair, like Brooke's hair, it doesn't get like greasy, so normally when I do hairstyles like this I have to wet it so that it doesn't like slide out and it sticks a lot better. The other thing you can do, and this is something that I really want to get, is you can get like really fine crimpers, and it basically just adds a lot of texture to the hair so that when you do like braids and stuff it like sticks. So yeah, that is something that I eventually want to get, because not only does it add texture to the hair so when you do the braids they stick better, but it also makes everything look a lot fuller. The particular one that I've seen is the Sweethearts crimping tool, volumizer tool. I'm just putting a towel around her just because I want to wet her hair and I don't want to get her dress all wet. Also, I just want to point out that I think a brush like this, I just got this from Asda. It's a Andrew Barton like wide tooth comb and a normal comb, and the reason why I like this so much is because throughout the style I like to brush her hair, and just to make it a lot easier so it doesn't get all knotted, I just like to use the like wide tooth one because then it doesn't pull the hair too much. Just spray the hair. You need to use something that is like quite a fine mist. If you use something that's just gonna like spray a really concentrated amount, it's just gonna make the hair really uneven. Brooke's hair has got really long since the last time we filmed a video. Can you turn the face the other way please?
That way?
Yeah.
That way?
No, the other way. Yeah. So you just want to get the hair fairly damp, I'd say. You just want to brush it through just to make sure it's all evenly distributed through her hair. Make sure as well you get underneath, because as you start doing the braid you're obviously going to be picking up bits of hair from the bottom. Okay, so to start off this hairstyle you just want to do a centre parting. Sit up straight. It definitely works best for the centre parting as opposed to like a side one, because you want the middle part of the braid to like sit in the middle. So I just start at the top first and then just bring it all the way down to the nape of her neck. Look down for me. And yeah, this just means that the braid is going to sit in the middle. So you want to get what the side you're not working on out the way, and you want to get it out the way in quite a tight ponytail because you really want to make sure that you don't get any of this hair caught in your other braid. It just makes it a lot easier to work with. So, and then just keep it by the side. Now there's a couple of things about this hairstyle that you need to keep in mind. Number one, it's easier to do if the person whose hair you're doing can hold bits of hair. Because of that, the hair needs to be, I would say, at least like shoulder length, because they're going to need to hold it that side. So you don't want them to have to like have their hand stretched really far back. It needs to be comfortable for them, especially if they're going to have to hold it for a fairly long time. You can clip the hair out the way. I find that to be a lot more difficult. So if you're, you know, doing this hairstyle for the first time, if you have another person to hand hold the hair, that would be better. I've done this hairstyle in Brooke's hair quite a few times now, so she is quite used to having to hold her hair, and she doesn't, she doesn't really mind holding it that much. And because I've done it a few times, I can feel like I can do it fairly quick. So she doesn't have to hold the hair for quite as long. So to begin, I'm just going to turn you like this. So to begin, you just want to start off by doing a normal Dutch braid. If you don't know how to do a Dutch braid, I can do a in-depth video on Brooke on how to do a Dutch braid. And you want to start like right in the corner, right near the parting, and just take like a triangle section. She's got a few like baby hairs here, which I normally just try and like let sit still because they look quite cute. And I always start by putting the piece that's closest to her eyebrow under first, then the one on the left under, then I put the one on the right under, and then I just grab a small section and add it into the middle. I'm not going to go too in depth on it because I feel like that's not the part of the braid that I really wanted to show, but I can do a whole separate video on how to do a Dutch braid on someone else. I have done it on myself before. Personally, I prefer the look of Dutch braids. I think that they look a lot more neat. You just want to make sure you get the hair as even as possible as well. With this hairstyle in particular, you want to make the sections even, because then when you go to put the braids together, they're going to look a lot more neat. Make sure you kind of brushing through the braid as well as you go, just to avoid any like knots, and it just keeps everything looking a lot more neat. I do find as well, like, the top is the most fiddly. Once you've got it going, it's a lot easier to do, so just keep going for a few more stitches. And if you really tightly move this other braid to the side, then you can see the parting. You can make sure that everything is as straight as possible as well.
You're really good at that.
Thank you. And make sure when you're doing the stitch, you hold the hair fairly tight. Again, Brooke is very used to me doing quite tight hairstyles on her hair, and as you can probably tell by her face, she's really not that bothered. Doing this can be quite uncomfortable, so if you do have a child that maybe doesn't sit as still or doesn't like having their hair done, I have done a video on tips to sort of get kids used to having their hair done. Not because you want to force them to have it done, but more so because, like, when she's at school, it keeps the hair out of her face when she does things like PE, and also doing braids like this can help prevent the spread of things like head lice, which is obviously quite a big problem in schools, particularly around girls with long hair. So I've gone back as far back as what I want to go. So if you can see, it's kind of like in level with the top of her ear. And you want to keep that in mind, because then when you're going to do the other side, it's going to be really easy to mimic it and get it as even as possible. So before I go ahead and do the next stitch, so this is the next piece of hair that's going to go under. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, you want to make sure that when you're taking these sections, you're taking roughly the same amount of hair each time you do it. So I'm probably taking about a third of the section of hair, and I'm going to pass it round her head, and I'm going to ask her just to hold that there for me, and she's going to, there, yeah, and she's going to hold it fairly tight, and you want to make sure it's just a little bit higher than the stitch as well, because then it's not going to get tangled and you can still keep the rest of the hair tight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this strand, I'm going to put it under the current middle strand. And again, when you first start doing it, it can be quite fiddly. Then I'm going to take a section of hair from the rest and add that to the middle. Then I'm just going to do the next stitch like normal. So I'm going to take the stitch on the strand on the right, pass it under the middle, and add a small section of hair. Then again, before the strand on the left goes under, I'm going to take about a third of the strand, or roughly the same as the first one.
What kind of place to be on?
This side. And I'm going to add it to the strand that I've already taken, just so it's easier for Brooke to hold, and I'm going to pass it to her on this side. And then again, this section on the left goes under the middle, add some hair in from the bottom, and then do the strand on the right, add some hair from the bottom, and then you get back to the strand on the left. So you basically want to keep repeating this until you have no more hair on the bottom. So I'm going to speed it up because I will go through it again quickly on the other side as well. So again, take roughly the same amount of hair, add it into the rest, because you can add it into the rest because once the braid's all done, they will separate again. Put the strand on the left under the middle, add some hair, the right. So I'm going to continue to do this until all the hair is added. So once you've added all the hair in at the bottom, so I've done all the stitches until I've got no hair left, there's a couple of things you can do. You could just secure it with a bobble and not go on anymore, or you can continue on for a little bit. Now the hair will get a lot thinner because obviously you've taken a fair amount of it out, but all you have to do is just before, oh you're right,
It's cold.
just before you put the strand on the left under the middle, you just want to take a small section and just add it into the rest.
I can't see.
That way you can continue adding hair in, and you can also change your grip as well, which is normally what I do. But just always make sure it's from the strand on the left when you're doing the right hand side. So if you're doing the right hand side, it's from the strand on the left. And also make sure you do the same amount. So I've done 2 since I've not got hair left. And if they drop the hair, which is fine, all you have to do is pick it back up again and just pass it to them. So I've done 2. Just make sure you keep count, because then when you turn your head, when you're doing the other side, you can make sure you have the same amount. So 3. And I'll do 1 more because the hair is getting quite thin.
And then 4.
4.
Then I pass all of this to you.
In a minute. And then just to kind of get it out. In a minute. Just to get it out the way for now, I'm just going to braid just the rest of this just very quickly. You don't have to go all the way to the bottom, but you just want enough where there is, you know, room for you to then decide what you want to do with the hair.
That's so long.
And then just take a elastic and just very loosely get it out of the way. So before we go onto the other side, this is what it should look like. So if you turn your head for me. So as you can see, you've got the braid like normal on the right hand side, but then you've got all this like fan of hair on the left side. So what I like to do now is I like to count the strands, because then when I go and do this side, I can make sure I have all the same amount. So like I said, you want to count the number of strands you had when you stopped adding hair in, which for me that was 4, which is the 4 you can see right here. But then at the top I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when I do the other side, I have to make sure I have 10, because you want to have the same number of pieces if possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the angle of the camera, and then I'll start the left hand side, but then I will quickly show you when we start like losing bits of hair, just to kind of remind you on how to do it on the other side. So just before I begin, just try and make sure that the sections are as even as possible with the other side. That way you should kind of guarantee yourself that you are going to have like the same number of bits out. It's going to start in the exact same place and it's going to look as even as possible. I mean, I've done this hairstyle so many times, and there have been a lot of times when it hasn't been even, but you can always make it work just by maybe pulling one side a bit tighter. It's not impossible to do when you start the braid in the middle as well, if one side is slightly higher than the other, then it just means that's going to be the way that you're going to like do it, which I will show you once we actually get to it. So you just need to move all this side out of the way and then just do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so I am about the same part. So I've just picked up hair from the top of her ear, and again, this is going to be the best way for you to know when to start it. So if you're doing it for the first time, I would just start as soon as you kind of pick that bit of hair up from the top of the ear and the ear is completely visible. That's when you start taking hair out. So again, just give it a quick brush through. You'll be able to tell as well, if she puts her head straight and forward, that if you grab the section from the other side and kind of pull it, you can see that it is just about even. So again, just take a small section from the strand on the right hand side this time. So last time we were taking it from the left, this time we're going to take it from the right. Brooke is then going to take her right hand and she's going to hold the section on this side, and she's going to hold it right about here, so basically right next to like her cheek. And then what we're going to do is we're going to again put the right strand under the middle, and this is where you really want to be able to see how big your sections are that you're picking up, because now what we should do is we should end up with 6 strands until we lose all the hair. Then we should be able to get 4 more. So I'm going to be very precise, because obviously very tired, about how much hair I take. So again, generally when you get to the bit where you're taking the hair out is when you're going to need to brush it out the most. So take a small section, pass it over. If they're not 100% the same, it's not the biggest deal. You just want to keep them as similar as possible, and then just look and see where you grabbed hair. So we've got 2, and then this is going to be the 3rd one. Finish it off. So again, we've got no hair left underneath. So obviously I'm going to make sure that I now do 4. So now when we do the centre braid, it should be as even as possible. But like I said, there are different ways you can style this so that it doesn't completely matter if it's not 100% even. So now what you end up with is, again, 10 strands of hair which have been taken out.
Whoa, cool.
Like that. So now we're going to get into the middle part. So obviously, as you can see, the side on the left has ended up a little bit higher than the side on the right. That is okay, because we're going to be able to fix that. So you're going to take the two top sections, and you're going to take about 1/3 of the section on the left and 1/3 of the section on the right. So essentially what you end up with is 3 strands to do a normal 3-strand braid. So with the Dutch braid we were going under, but this time we're going to go over. And because we started off higher on the left side, we're going to put that over first. Then you're going to put the side on the right over. Then you're going to put the strand on the left over, and it's quite fiddly at first, but once you get going, it's fine. Then you're going to take put your head back, the next section on the left, and you're going to add that in. Then you're going to put the strand on the right over. Then you're going to take the next section and you're going to add that in. You're going to put the strand on the right over. You're going to take the next section, add that in, put the strand on the left over. Take the next section, add it in, and what this is just going to do is create it almost looks like you've done it in one when you haven't. You've done it in 2 steps. So rather than doing like a 5-strand braid or something, you've done 2 3-strand braids, but then you've given yourself room to do more. So you're just going to continue going. You can do this as tight or as loose as you want. I like to pull it a little bit tight, but not too tight. And you just want to keep adding the hair in. And because you've done the same number of strands on each side, you're not going to end up with 2 strands left on one side but 5 strands left on the other, because I have been in that situation before, and then when you go to finish it, it looks quite odd. So you're just going to keep adding hair. once you get nearer to the bottom, because the braids come quite close together, it can be a little bit more fiddly. So if you need to, you can get someone just to hold the two braids a bit apart. So at this point, you can do whatever you want. What I then like to do is just add the braids in, but very, very loosely. So you've still got that effect. And then you can continue going as far down as you like. Once you get to where you put the elastics, you can just really carefully remove them and continue going all the way down the bottom and then secure it with an elastic. You could pancake this, which I probably will a little bit, just to give the bottom bit a bit more fluffiness. I wouldn't pancake the top bit though, I'd leave that as it is. But what I'm going to do is, you don't want to do the bobble up too tight, but just take the sort of side bits and just very gently pull at them a little bit, just to make it a bit fluffier. If you had a crimping tool, like I mentioned at the beginning of the tutorial, then you probably wouldn't actually need to do this step. The braid itself would probably be quite thick. I like to start at the bottom because I feel like if you start at the top, sometimes it can be too loose. So this is what the finished braid looks like. There you go, you can see it a bit better there. There are multiple ways that you can style it. You can leave it like that. A couple of times what I've done is just twisted this bottom bit and just like tucked it in like that. That looks really cute. You could do like a bun at the bottom. But one of Brooke's favourite things to do is wear bows in her hair. And I think it's really nice as well because the bow kind of hides the beginning of the braid, which just gives it a little bit more of something extra. But I love this hairstyle because her hair really does stay out of her face. It stays in for a really, really long time because it's all kind of braided into each other. She doesn't get like bits that fall out like she would with a normal, you know, sort of one French or one Dutch braid. So we're actually going to put a bow in it, but Brooke wants to show you what bow she's got and let you know which one she chooses.
I got these bows. This is a gold and blue bow. This is my sparkly red bow. This is my pink silver bow. This is my pink, yellow, green, blue, purple, and then another pink bow.
Rainbow bow.
Rainbow bow. This is my blue bow that Nanny gave me. It's new. This is my pink sparkly bow. This is my pink, blue, green, and silver bow. What bow am I gonna wear? I'm gonna wear this bow.
Okay, so Brooke does generally choose big, massive bows, but they do look really cute in her hair. So, you turn around again, please. You can put this in different places. You know, you could, if it was a smaller bow, you could put it a bit further down, but it looks perfect. Like I said, right at the top, right at the beginning. You just want, what I would do is just where you start, like the loops, just put the bow very gently and carefully through to the other side like that. So that is what you get. So from the front, this is what it looks like. But then as soon as you see the back, you know, from the front, you'd think that she just has sort of two braids. But then when she turns around, she has this like really cool, unique looking braid. I don't know what the actual technical name is for it, but it really suits her. It really looks nice. It's very often for a party or even for school, this is what she wears. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I really miss doing like hair tutorials on Brooke, and especially now that her hair's like a lot longer. It's quite a bit thicker, and there's a few other hairstyles that I would really, really like to show. She does ballet as well, so she has to have like a proper ballet bun, and doing like tight buns wasn't something that I found very easy, but there was like a technique that I've used every time she's had to have it, and it's worked every single time. So I do want to share that with you as well. So if you like this video,
please give us a thumbs up and subscribe.
Subscribe. So yeah, so please give us a big thumbs up and subscribe if you like this video. If you want to see more videos with Brooke, then definitely let me know. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.
Bye.
Bye.
And this one is for when Mummy and Daddy got married. Daddy got it from the Disney shop. It's Mickey and Minnie getting married, and Mummy is Minnie, Daddy is Mickey.